Welcome to Casual Watch Talk, the podcast from the Casual Watch Reviewer YouTube channel. Join us as we talk everything watches, from watch collecting, the latest horology news and interviews. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe on your favourite podcast app. Let's dive into the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 26 of Casual Watch Talk. We've got over that quarter to 100.
All
Getting
right.
closer.
Yep.
How have you been this week, Chris?
Decent, hanging in there. We've got, we're still in the midst of our pandemic, but we went out for a drive on last Thursday and just kind of got out of the house. Went up to the mountains just to get out and away. So doing well.
Yeah, we went out for a drive yesterday down the coast to Carlsbad, which I've never been before, which is anybody's not familiar with the west of the US, it's sort of half the way to San Diego from where I live, which is sort of Laguna Beach area. It was pretty nice to get out.
Nice.
It's amazing how some people are doing the masks and some people aren't.
Yeah. Well, our county, which is giant county. I mean, the counties in California are as big as states in the East Coast. Our county is confused if we should have a mask rule or we shouldn't, but our governor wants one. So I believe we should. I'm going to continue wearing my mask.
Yes, I'm going to wear one partly because it's out of respect for people that work in these shops and things like that, aren't they?
Yeah.
You sometimes wonder what the mentality of people that don't wear them. I mean, fair enough if you're not concerned yourself about catching something, that's one thing, but also just, out of respect for people working in the shops. But anyway, that's a whole separate podcast called something different than Casual Watch Talk.
Yeah, let's get into watches. Let's lose ourselves in some watch talk.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's start off with your watch obsession this week. I'm interested to know what you've been obsessing about this week.
Yeah, so my watch obsession has been accuracy. And for those folks that join us over on the Facebook group, I've been posting. I just posted a picture. I've got 3 weeks worth of data, or at least 2 weeks. Has it been 3 weeks? I don't know. My life's a blur, Sam. Of data from my new to me used Zin 104, and full disclosure, I did knock about 3 seconds a day. I added 3 seconds a day. I was running about 3 seconds slow when I got it.
Oh, really?
So I added just a touch, and I will say that the Sellita is super easy to. Instead of having on the Seikos, if you guys are familiar with, if you've ever done it yourself or you've ever seen the YouTube video where they show you how to do it, the Seiko adjustment has that bar that's connected to the to the spring, and the bar adjusts the whole sort of position. And if you touch that thing, an eighth of a millimeter, you could knock 12 seconds off of it, no problem. With the Sellita and some of the Valjoux movements, some of the ETA movements, they offer basically a screw that's concentric or oblong, or anyway, that just makes a super micro adjustment. So you just need a small screwdriver and just a light touch of that, and I got it dialed in, and it was running 5 seconds slow, and it has been running 5 seconds slow for 3 weeks. So excited.
You've done a great job of that. I saw some of the stats that you posted on the Facebook group.
Yeah, it was. I was stoked when there's like 3 nights in a row. I always check my watch before I go to sleep. There's 3 nights in a row where it was plus 0.2, and it was just like bang on for 3 days in a row. I was like, yes. So, made in Germany, Swiss watch, or German watch actually. But the same folks that make Swiss stuff, and Swiss movement, should I say. Yeah, couldn't be happier. Especially used, especially something. It's only from the paperwork. This watch was manufactured in last year, so it's not that bad. So super excited about that. It's just one of those things. I realize that not everybody is, and sort of God bless you if you aren't, because like it's very much like most things. Once you get the taste of the accuracy, or you really are focused on something like that, it's hard. You can get into trouble. I would say it's a lot like wine. When if you're fine and can enjoy a $4 bottle of wine, it's amazing. But if you're the kind of person that can't and has to seek out the more expensive, more like vintage or years or types or brands of anything, then it can get expensive really quick.
Regulating a watch, I think it's a scary thought for most people, isn't it? Because you're messing around with what is an extremely delicate mechanical marvel, really.
Right.
What made that change for you? What made you give it a go? And did you start off with like pocket watches like some people do, or what you got you rolling on it?
Yeah, so I went and it started with my Seiko modding. I wanted to put a different set of hands on my Seiko Turtle. And a lot of folks kind of know the story, but I basically was like, I bought a set of hands from eBay, and I wanted the original, the 6509 or something. The original Turtle had a lollipop seconds hand. So I was like, it'd be really cool if it looked like the vintage Turtle. And I went to a watchmaker and I was like, hey, can you put these seconds on this watch? And he was like, sure, for $180. And I was like, oh no. That's a chunk of change, considering, we're talking about a watch that was $300. So I found somebody else that was like, maybe do it for like $100, that sort of thing. And I dove in because I said, well, I'm pretty mechanically inclined. I've built race car engines and done a lot of fabrication for rally, and I'm not afraid of metalworking. I'm not afraid of woodworking, and good with that. So I'm like, maybe we can do that. And was successful in changing the hands myself after buying about $100 worth of tools on Amazon. And then I picked up a vintage Seiko and completely stripped it apart, put it back together, got it working again, completely stripped it apart, like figured out how it all worked. And then once you get comfortable with that and working with the tiny little pieces, then regulation, I would even say regulation is designed for someone for the layman to adjust. Granted, if you're not doing it every day, but with a little bit of experience, I mean, it's a set screw. It's a tiny set screw. So if you have a decent set of screwdrivers that are precise, you can just carefully go in there. If you have the dexterity, you can carefully go in there and dial your watch in. So it's sort of, you get comfortable with it.
Would you recommend? You mentioned the tools that you got, but would you say you almost definitely need a time grapher as well, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah, absolutely. The way I started was there are some programs you can download where if you get a really precise microphone or a really accurate microphone, you can put the watch on top of the microphone and pick it up on an application. The other thing is they do the same thing with where you do a microphone and a clip, and you can do an app on your phone. And this is all to avoid buying a $150 machine. And I figured I was deep enough into the hobby that I was going to be doing more Seiko stuff when I ended up doing. So I just splurged and got it. But certainly Sam's taking advantage of it. I've taken advantage of it. Other folks. I brought it to a watch meet, our OC Chrono event, which I'm looking forward to once the pandemic is over, returning and getting back together with folks. But I brought it to one of the events, and we kind of had a accuracy throwdown.
Now, I always think the scary things with these are that sometimes the analogy that ignorance is bliss. Have you found any of your watches that you really loved that when you've thrown them on the time grapher, it really changed your opinion of them, timing-wise?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I will admit this is my fault. I will admit it's my fault that I'm an accuracy snob, but having gone through the watch box and after picking up a 20-year-old chronograph, trying to go back to the Seiko NH35 was hard, because that it does not have positional accuracy at all. I mean, it just, if you put it on its side, it's going to read plus or minus 10. And you just sort of hope that throughout the day that sort of evens out. But yeah, it made me really sort of disappointed in how those movements are made. Yeah.
That was an eye-opener for me when we did the turtle, because I know when I've mentioned on my channel in the past that my Seiko watches haven't been accurate, you inevitably get the comments, well, mine's 2 seconds a day or whatever. But I think what was interesting you found out was that even if you can get it down, Seiko movement down in 2 seconds, and you were just alluding to this now, that turning on its side, you might get it might be 10 seconds a day, whereas you would sort of find that ETA has a positional accuracy, because so depending on how because your watch isn't always flat on your wrist, it's usually by your side.
Yeah, so I think first you want to sort of shoot for, I mean, I always go for accuracy on wrist, and I know watchmakers go for that. That's why you tend to get a watch that's running +2 usually. That's sort of where they shoot for, because they know that it's not dial up on your, watch runs great, dial up, or dial down. Like it's going to run in that position where it has the least amount of gravity, affecting it. So that's why a watchmaker will give it to you +2, +3, something like that. And then as you wear it, then you sort of figure out where that ends up falling. And yeah, I have a bunch, and I've seen this especially with the Seiko. Like in the box, it might be sitting on flat dial up 5-6 seconds, but then wearing it, it zeroes out, and then you're like, okay, it was it was +1 today, or it was -2 today, or whatever, and that's fine.
Do you think when you're buying a Seiko watch, if you do get one that's accurate, there's probably a 50% chance you might get one that's not accurate as well? I mean, it's hard to say, isn't it? We haven't done enough representative samples, I don't think, but definitely changed my view on Seiko. I mean, I hadn't had a great deal of luck with mine being very accurate. I think that's why they give such a swathe, isn't it, of, I don't know what it is, like -15 plus 25 or something.
Right. Yeah, I think the base or the 7S26 I think is like 40. I think it might be 30 or 40 seconds, something like that. I haven't looked at the specs, but yeah, exactly. So I found after probably modding 5 or 6 Seikos, I bought a bunch of movements. I had the couple of replacement NH35s that I picked up that I bought direct from what's Seiko's Seiko Instruments, which is just the company that's making them for Seiko. And yeah, I would get one that I could regulate down and was a runner, and then I would get other ones that I had 7S26 out of one of my original modded watches, and I was super excited because I thought that upgrading to the NH35 with hacking and hand winding, I thought, okay, this is a better movement. This is an upgrade. But in actuality, the only difference between an NH35 and the hacking and hand winding movement to the base SKX movement is it just has a lever that stops the escapement and allows you to hand wind it. So it has an extra, little crown gear in there. But as far as the balance is the same, the springs are the same, the gears, the gear train's exactly the same, the calendar wheel's exactly the same. Like it's all interchangeable parts. So when I first ran into this, I had a 7S26 that was super accurate, and I had an NH35 that wasn't, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm taking this out to put more features in, and that was
because you almost never see, and micro brands don't really talk about this either, but if you're backing a micro brand that uses ETA or one that uses Sellita, I've just reviewed Jimmy Collins' new Collins Watch's new sonar one, and he lists that he's had it measured to 6 points of accuracy. And you almost never see that reference when it's a Japanese movement, do you? You wouldn't see, I can't recall a micro brand that says, we use the NH35A measured to 6 positions.
Right. Yeah. At the most, I've seen them do it with the special Miyota. So Notice does it with the 9105 Miyota movement, where they'll measure it in 5 positions. But yeah, I feel like it's the, if you have 2 options, it's the $150 less NH35 or a regulated to 5 position, Salida or ETA, something. So yeah, something to look out for you future accuracy snobs.
Yeah, I remember when I interviewed Spencer Klein, who's one of those rare breed of independent Seiko repair specialists. In fact, he's in such demand. I'm not sure if he's taken any more watches on, but he certainly told me, and we did a full YouTube video on this, that at one time the Seiko mechanical movements were amazing, and he feels that certainly they've slipped recently. But having said that, they are trying to get more into the higher end, and we've got our fingers crossed one day for a cheap spring drive, haven't we?
Right. That's right. Yeah. And he did a really good video. If you're going to Spencer Klein's YouTube, he did a really good video that I caught probably like a year and a half ago now, where he was talking about the lubrication problem, where the factory just wasn't doing it right. And so they were putting too much lubrication on parts that didn't need it. And then they were putting like the grease in areas that wasn't supposed to have grease. And then opposite, he had areas that were dry. And I mean, this is, this level of quality, you take, the first, second, third wheel, you take any part of the escapement, and if you don't oil the escapement perfect, it'll throw it. So you just really have to so maybe we're trying to get robots to do it, I'm sure, but that's something I know Seiko was working on, and like I said, Spencer had a great video about that.
Yeah, it was funny when I had that Paddy edition, the one that was the sort of Seiko 62 mass, like the first time they did a homage to that one, and we did a whole video, Spencer and I sent the movement off to him because it started acting really weird, and I was going to send it back to where I bought it from, but then I thought what a great video it would be, and he'd actually offered to take it apart, and he normally wouldn't do that. He said these movements are so, I mean, I paid $800 for the watch, but the movement was just the I think,
like the $40.
So he said normally he would just replace it out, but
special,
he actually took it apart, and you're right, he found lubrication issues, and because there's machines making them en masse, it's not somebody hand lubricating them or whatever.
Right.
But it's an interesting discussion. I mean, we both are still Seiko fans, aren't we? But
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
I think, because I haven't done my watch obsession yet, I think we're going to use my watch obsession for the main body of the show here, and also because we've been talking about eBay and buying and selling watches on eBay, and I maybe got a little bit burnt on eBay, but we're gonna talk it through because I wasn't following all of the best advice that I would give somebody else. I wasn't following it myself, but we're back and forth. But before we do that, we're nearly at the 20-minute mark. Let's just pause for a very quick ad break. Well, welcome back, everyone. So, Chris, I might have done a naughty thing on eBay.
I know, right? We'll get into your watch obsession this week. Right?
So my watch obsession this week is, you've heard me talk about it on the channel a couple of times. I've also been posting it on the Facebook group. And if you've not a member of the Casual Watch Talk Facebook group yet, head over there. There's some great conversation, isn't there, Chris? I've been really impressed how it's grown.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. A lot of fun over there.
People have been giving me ideas for the YouTube channel. We've been getting plenty of ideas for the podcast. We've been getting to see some fantastic watches, also some really interesting discussion. There was an interesting discussion about COSC certification today, which was a real eye-opener for me. We've got some real experts on there, so big shout out to everyone on that Facebook group. So today, my watch obsession has been the Breitling B1. If you've not seen this, it was an Annie Digi Breitling watch made from 1998 to the early 2000s. I think in the past, if I'd seen this watch, I wouldn't have been that blown away by it. But as I'm becoming more of a watch collector, I've got a real appreciation for quartz and what certain companies have done with quartz. So I've been really looking for one of these Breitling B1s. The reason being is it's a modest size, so it's like a 44 millimeter case, but now the new ones are huge. In fact, some of them are that big they're making them in titanium, because I think if they were in steel,
oh wow, yeah, they just not club
you
someone
club someone out. Also, the bezel is it's like a reverse timing bezel. It's not a dive bezel.
Okay.
It's like a reverse countdown bezel. The action on it is stunning. It's got a slide rule on there as well.
So you went looking for one of these. You guys went off. Yeah, I think Chris and you had one of our fellow members. You guys went off on a tangent where you're doing some research, looking for a special one of these, right?
I've been looking on Chrono24. I've been looking on eBay. And what's weird about this particular watch is there's a couple of things weird about it. The pricing is all over the place. You can find some that are $1,500 from Japan, but they look like the hands are damaged. You can find ones, Crown and Caliber have got them for in excess of $2,000. There doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason to the pricing. Mm-hmm. So I've been stalking a few. Also, the other weird thing with it is apparently the module inside, when you read on a Breitling forum, is not necessarily covered under a Breitling service. So if the module goes, people have been stung for quite a bit of money. The analog digital. It's been a real interesting. I've been stalking them for probably about 2 months now. Anyway, I found.
Yeah, it's good it's good that you that's sort of, as we were talking last week, you do your research. Like you gotta find out what are these sold for, what are people buying them for, what are they, these modules, right? Exactly.
And good. I managed to find one which is a very rare one on eBay. The guy had just listed it as a military insignia one. He had no idea. There's an outline of a helicopter on the dial, and he thought it was a Chinook, but it isn't. So I did a bit of research. Chris on the Facebook group and our military expert, he'd also helped me with some research, because I didn't want to buy one if it was some obscure like military, or was like a KGB watch or something.
Yeah, or like the group that provided food for the, which is important. It's important, but also the group that provided food for the guys that fly jets. You're like, I kind of want the guys that fly jets watch or helicopters, attack helicopters.
Yeah, you need to know what the insignia is, don't you? Anyway, so it turns out that this insignia on the dial is it was sold in America, but it's an RAF squadron insignia. So being British, and when I was a kid, I had a real obsession with the RAF. I was in the Air Cadets, the Air Training Corps for a long time. So I had a real passion for the RAF. So I was like, great, it's got the RAF on it. And then it's got like a Pegasus symbol. And it turns out that only 28 of these particular watches were ever made. And they were gifts for this squadron 28, which was based, one of the squadrons that came back from Hong Kong when that was passed back to Chinese rule from British rule in 1997. It was definitely beat up on the listing, but it's a highly polished case, so I kind of gave that a pass. And I don't know, what do you think, Chris? I mean, sometimes if it's a highly polished case and it's scratched up, that's a good sign because it's not been polished or
true, yeah, and I'm not as afraid of, I mean, with the polishing cloth, with a buffer, like you can get that back. It's the watches to look out for, you're right, are the ones that are like, you can see all the edges are rounded and the thing is super polished, mirror finished. Yeah, you're almost looking for something with, okay, so it's got some desk scratches on it. You're like, okay, so now I know that the thing wasn't refinished from zero 20 times.
Exactly. So I wasn't too mad that it was bashed up. Also, I'm going to bash it up. And
yeah, and that's actually an interesting side point. So one of the reasons, and folks that have been listening in, you sold your refurbished Omega, you sold your Tudor, basically because you were petrified of scratching it up. And here, it's sort of you're giving yourself a pass because you're like, it's already got scratches.
Exactly. So this guy had it listed for $1,800, but he did have it on as make an offer.
Make an offer. Right. Mm-hmm.
And he had good-ish feedback. He's got nearly 6,000 feedback and only 4 negative. So that's usually a pretty good sign. I mean, you'd hope that they would have no negative. But I read them and I was like, okay, fair enough, it's got some negative. And I put in a real cheeky offer of $1,500. So it's $300 less than what he had it listed for. And he accepted it straight away. And in that offer, I'd actually asked some details, like, does it have boxing papers? Because the description was super vague. It was like, this is in good use condition.
Take it or leave it.
Exactly. Then when the watch arrived, the dial is... This is my quandary, Chris. So the dial is definitely damaged. My suspicion is that maybe the crystal has cracked on it, and then somebody's tried to, like, wipe away the glass fragments. And like you mentioned, the loom is not on there, and neither is the picture of the helicopter. So we're wondering, what did you think it was?
Oh, I said, so isopropyl alcohol melts loom. It'll just dissolve it just immediately. So if someone went to clean up that dial and like wiped it with isopropyl, maybe that's how you lost. So you lost there's like some black printing that goes over the silhouette of the helicopter, and then that makes sort of sense that if that was like a sticker or that was a decal that was applied, and then you have the loom itself, it makes sense that someone has attempted to, or at some point cleaned that dial with some chemical.
Exactly. Yeah. And the dial is definitely scratched. Now, her hands are also scratched. Now, this is my this is the quandary, and this is what we've been discussing before, and this is why we thought we might turn it into a podcast, is there's a lot of pros and cons for this watch. For a start, I really just like the watch, which we were saying is a big advantage, because I've been really struggling recently buying watches online, and just when you see them in person, they're just not right.
Right. And they don't wear right, and they're not for you, and sort of this. So you now have a situation where, okay, so you were interested in the B1, and you've got one, and you've been wearing it, and you like the look of it. It's not too big. It wears well, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and it's already got scratches on it, so I'm not afraid of scratching it. It's not like a precious object. I think at $1,500, it was a good deal for the described condition. I think it's in slightly worse condition than what's described.
Yeah.
My quandary is that the seller's quite nasty about it, actually. I contacted them straight away, which is what you should do. Contact them straight away, before you adjust the bracelet, before you do anything. In fact, I was a little bit worried myself, so I filmed the entire unboxing, literally cutting the box open. Not for a YouTube video, for security.
Just for protection, consumer protection.
Exactly. So,
right. I mean, you can't, if you get down into a, hey, everyone has a cell phone camera. Just, right? Why not? Like, it's, just take a video. Great.
I think you should. What's your view on doing it when you're packaging up the watch as well, and you're sending it off to be sold?
I mean, I wouldn't think to. So as the seller, what's the proof that I gave you the thing that I said I was going to give you and put it in the box? Like, I could make a video of it and then just send you a brick. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, or I'd send you a different watch, that sort of thing. But I think if you're receiving it, you have a sealed item that hasn't been opened. And so then you can say, like, no, this is, like, you can see the video, like, this has not been opened before. And then you open it and then you're like, this is exactly how I received it. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's what I did, because, you always have a little bit of suspicion. And I emailed the seller. He's quite nasty, really, about it. I asked him whether, obviously, there'd been damage to the dial. He's claimed that there wasn't. I attached some photos, etc. And we went back and forth. I initially asked for a partial refund to see if I could get the dial reconditioned myself. I don't even know how you would do that.
Yeah. Now, 1 second. So you also found, like, the provenance. You found a picture of this in its original state, like the actual, like, there's a site that you found when doing your research. And and you found the provenance of it. You found the original dial, and then you sent that picture to him and said, like, listen, this is clearly not the same. And then he disputed that.
Yeah, you're right. He said that they were made in small batches. No two are the same, which is a lie. I mean, these are...
That's not... Yeah. It's going to look like... Right. It's a unique watch that, 28 were made, and it's going to look like the one that they issued. Like, it's not going to be... It's not going to... The silhouette of the helicopter.
Exactly. And yeah, you're totally right. And these aren't a limited edition watch. This is a military squadron, and Chris... we'll have to get him back on the channel. We will get him back on the channel to talk about these, because he bought one for his squadron with their insignia on it. So these are where...
Yeah, like special issue.
So this is, exactly. So this is where a squadron in this case would go to Breitling and say, we want our insignia on there, our military insignia, to commemorate something. In this one, it happens to be commemorating this Squadron 28 helicopter pilots. So they're not limited edition. It's not... You cannot buy these yourself. You would not be able to buy one of these yourself.
Oh, right. Okay. So it's super unique.
Yeah, they're not like a souvenir of that squadron or whatever. They are a custom ordered dial. Right. Yep. Breitling do this a lot. I think some of them have stopped doing it. I don't know if Breitling still do it, but they used to. So this is my quandary now: is do I send it back because of the dial? Now you can't see it from afar. It's only because this is to your earlier point, isn't it? If I wasn't a watch geek, I wouldn't be looking at this thing under a loop. I wouldn't have done all the research. I would just think it looks cool. Yeah, which it does. Yeah. It looks cool.
It does. It looks cool. And as I said to you, like, as soon as you look at anything under a 10x loop, it looks like trash. So, like, I'll see pictures, like, people will post up pictures on, like, Reddit where they'll, like, show the printing or the applying of the paint to a GMT hand on a Rolex, and they're like, oh, goodness gracious. And you're like, it's a 20x picture. No one is ever looking at watches at this dimension, you know? And, like, I can only imagine, like, I have a couple of watches, you know, like, some of the mods that I've done where, like, I had finger cots on and, like, clean environment and just brushed the hands a little too hard, and there's this little imprint that gets left on the dial, and when you're staring at it under a loop, you notice it. So yeah, I agree. You're the curse of the watch guy there.
So the disadvantages. Maybe we should talk through the advantages and the disadvantages of it.
Yeah, let's. Yeah.
The disadvantages are something's happened to the dial. Somebody who's not a watchmaker or somebody who doesn't know what they're doing has messed with the dial and hands. Because the module in these is very expensive. Is there other damage to the module? We don't know. Is there some unspecified damage to the module that we don't know about? Also, the chances are I will never be able to get the helicopter put back on there. It must have been a decal.
Right.
I'm sure that Breitling do these as a one-off. If they print the dial, I don't know. Also, I'm not sure whether I could get the loom reapplied. I think you can, but then who do we know that does that? Who do we trust that does that?
Right. And having a watchmaker do that, just, you know, 2 hours, that's going to be $400 of their time to do something like that. Yeah.
So those are there's no box and papers either. Now, I have gone onto a website where I checked whether it was stolen or not. I don't know if you've seen, there's two prominent websites where you can go in and put the serial number in.
Okay.
And I put it in the largest one. It cost me like $6, and it said no, this watch has not been reported lost or stolen.
Okay, not been reported lost and stolen. Okay, that's something to think about when you get, if you're, I think you got that offer accepted. You got the quote unquote great deal because clearly the seller is trying to obfuscate some of the damage that's been done to this. And like they're being super vague about it, or they're not giving you details. So you've uncovered the reason why he jumped at the chance to give you a $1,500 offer, or to take your $1,500 offer. You've uncovered that. Yeah, if you had this, if this thing was in absolute mint condition and he accepted an offer of $700 for it, then you're like, wait a minute, if it's too good to be true, totally a good idea, especially for once you get into this price point, luxury watch price point. You're dealing with $2,000, $3,000 new. Like new, these watches were $3,000. Like, yeah, okay. Spend the $6, drop the serial number and see if this fell off a truck, because we don't want to support sellers on eBay that think they can fence goods.
So those are the disadvantages to it. The dial is scratched. There could be other damage that we don't know about. Also, having the helicopter added on again is probably going to be almost impossible. Now, the positive points about keeping it are the silhouette of the helicopter is still there, so it does still look like a helicopter. It just hasn't got the name underneath. It's got a banner that basically doesn't have anything. It's just a white silhouette, so it doesn't look awful.
Okay.
The fact that there's no loom on it is annoying, but the Ani-Digi part of it, it does have a backlight, so you can press it in the backlight, and apparently that is also one of the things that's tricky with this model, is that backlight fails and it can't be repaired if you look on forums.
Okay, so but the backlight is working, so this is a pro, and yeah, you could just so it's night. I think it's funny. We and like anybody that has a dive watch, I mean, we love our loom, but in all practicality, it's like you're just gonna press the button. You're just gonna light it up.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The dial, I think, is authentic because the printing is very sharp. The slide rule printing is still very sharp on the dial, which I think is exceptionally hard to fake from what I've seen. Also, who would think to fake RAF Squadron? It doesn't even have the RAF logo on it. I don't know who would think to fake this, and to get it so intricate and precise, and it looks exactly like the bits that are remaining look exactly like the reference images online. I mean, there's no deviation there.
Yeah. No, it seems I would take it. I would take it that it's legitimate. That's legit.
And then the other advantage with keeping it is the seller has offered me a partial refund. Now, it's a gesture more than a significant chunk, but at least, and I might have to accept that because they might not accept the refund at all, and then I have to go through eBay and all of that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
And
that's another. I mean, that's another, like, you guys, if you're looking on eBay for stuff, like, you got to check the seller, just like if you're, and I hear Federico mention this, like, you got to trust the seller. You got to buy the seller, and you got to go in and look at his reviews, which you said you did, and then look at his return policy, and then go through the stuff. Just do a little bit of a looking here before you.
Yeah, and I didn't kind of do that because I was so eager to put in like a cheeky offer that was below the market value for them, and I wasn't expecting him to accept it. I was putting in an offer just because. Just to see what would happen, just
to open the door,
yeah.
Then
the other advantage of keeping it, which this is going to sound weird, but I feel like it's a very important part of RAF history, because these watches, there was only 28, and they weren't given to the entire squadron. They were only given to the commanders, I believe, of the squadron. There's a very good website that has it detailed, which I'll leave a link in the show notes. So I feel like it kind of needs preserving a little bit, the military history of it.
The preservation.
Yeah, I don't know how many of these survived. I don't know how many more of these are out there, out of the 28.
Well, okay, so the next question I have is, so you asked for some money back because it wasn't as described. He has not offered you as much as you asked for. So would you sell this to someone else? Like if another one of these came along and it had the RAF logo on it and it was amazing, would you sell it to someone else? Would you maybe keep it? Where are you at?
It's a really interesting thing, isn't it? I've thought about this a lot, because there must be people who are in that RAF squadron this represents a piece of history for them. I don't know whether it's got some value to somebody like that. I mean, if I was to list it again, I would be taking incredibly detailed photographs of this, as I do with all of my eBay listings, because it is not worth it is not worth it leaving a sour taste in somebody's mouth. I have never had negative feedback, and I've got well over 1,000 feedback of things that I've sold, which I've sold double that, because probably triple that, because hardly everybody leads feedback if you're a seller.
Right. And if you are a seller, that is like, everybody asks, like, I'll get these questions sometimes where they're just like, well, what, like, how do I list and sell stuff on eBay? Just like take 8 really good high resolution photographs. Like, it's not 1980 where you had to have like film developed here. Like, you could just take 1,000 photos and just pick 8 really good photographs and just blast a bunch of good high quality photos there if you want to sell it. Because I've also gotten folks that bought a watch from me that claimed like, oh, well, there was all these scratches on the back. Well, you're like, where were these scratches? Because I'm looking at 9 pictures of just the bracelet. so to protect yourself as a seller. But yeah, and you kind of went into this. So to set the kind of synopsis here, you went into this with like a throwaway offer. You saw a couple pictures on it. You were interested in the provenance. It was a price that was, like you said, cheeky, where you're like, hey, if the guy accepts it, that'll be amazing, and I'll be happy with it. So you're kind of close to where, if he's giving you some money back for the fact that the dial is damaged, you're kind of really close to this being okay with your purchase, it sounds like. And as I said in the beginning, now you've had it on wrist. You know that you enjoy at least this case style, this case type, this module, this type. So I almost think, maybe just kick it down the road a little bit, and you say, well, you wear it. It is what it is. Maybe you look into replacing the hands. Maybe you look into relooming, how much that's going to cost or maybe, or you don't. And then you set up a few eBay searches and you maybe figure out, you're its caretaker for a little while.
I might do that. It's definitely on eBay, regardless, you pay your money and you take your chance, don't you, a lot of the time.
I mentioned this, I think, before, but there are the details that, you pay the money. And I've had watches that I purchased on eBay that have just been flawless. And then I've had ones where it was a slog. That 103 that I bought, where the crown, they listed some issue, but the crown may be screwed in like a third of a turn, maybe a quarter of a turn. And so you're like, to someone who's like, oh, well, the crown, the threading may be suspect. You're like, this doesn't even thread. It's like your interpretation of what the situation is, or how it is.
Now, hopefully this has been an interesting podcast for somebody. We just wanted to take you through the chain of thought of talking about eBay, talking about the pros and cons of when you get a watch. Should you keep it? Should you not?
Mm-hmm. I think it highlights the fact that, and we talk about it a little bit, like, yes, it's, for us, value is important, but also we've mentioned the authorized dealer experience. We've mentioned the story. For however much heartache I had with that 103 that I got with the crown messed up, it turned into a great story because I was able to import parts from Germany, and I had friends on forums that were, shipping stuff across borders, and on black market importing parts in the United States, et cetera, et cetera. So it becomes that story. So there is value in that. There's the value of the hunt, where you're looking for this particular watch, and you've got your searches, and the figuring out what you want, and you want that experience to go smoothly. And it's a bummer when it doesn't, because it really, Sam, when we started talking about this, you were not worried about the money, because it was just you gave this sort of throwaway offer, and sweet, you got a Breitling B1 for a great price. But that sort of, is this experience souring every time I look at my wrist, or I'm out in public and someone is like, oh, hey, cool watch, or you're talking to someone about like RAF and how, the same story that you told. Is it enough to sour that? I don't think it is, but you have to make up your own mind.
And I think if the dial could have maybe a layer of lacquer applied to it. It would get rid of the scratches. It's certainly been interesting, and you can't buy one of these new. You can only buy them secondhand. They're a model that isn't made anymore. And like you said, it's been a great exercise knowing that I really like the watch, because with that Squale that I bought and a few other ones I bought online where you see them in person, you're like, oh, I don't know if I quite like that. That's a real hard thing with buying stuff online, that some of the watches are just no way of getting around because you can't see them unless they're...
Especially a lot of these, I mean, the micro brands, I mean, they talk about subverting the industry. Well, yeah, that also means that they don't have brick and mortar stores and that you can't actually try them on. So that's, that's something we have to, certainly do.
All right, guys. Well, that was, you kind of heard our stream of thought there, Chris and I. Hopefully you found that interesting. As always, we do appreciate your comments. Head over to Casual Watch Talk Facebook group and let us know. Let us know that you're listening, that you're enjoying the podcast. If you've got any suggestions as well, let us know over there. Just request a membership. We'll invite you on, and then just let us know you're a listener and that you've got an idea for an upcoming podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, Chris, anything last on that subject, or should we wrap it up here?
No, I think we're good. It'll be up to you if you're gonna keep it, how the story unfolds. But I think we went through bit by bit kind of the steps that we go through on these purchases.
Absolutely.
So good luck.
As always, we really do appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.